The television landscape is in an unprecedented state of flux right now, as established broadcasters face heightened competition from new players and viewers make new considerations about what they want to watch and what they really want to pay for. The last thing that viewers weighing their television options need is a product with advertising that's outright lying to them. Traditionally, there's two ways to watch major television channels: through a pay TV service such as cable or satellite, or over the air through an antenna. While broadcast over-the-air television hasn't exactly been the sexiest or most desirable thing over the years, the manner is gaining more popularity in recent times, both due to the explosive growth of multicasting and the expanding variety of ways in which viewers can watch TV shows, which has led some to unsubscribe from their longtime cable providers and spend that money instead on streaming services, even though that math is becoming increasingly costly in itself. For those still looking to watch linear television, including local news and major network programming, after getting all worked up into ditching their cable bill, they'll have to buy an antenna. Antenna shopping and selection is its own process, and the less astute on the matter likely wouldn't know where to start, particularly if they've been subscribing to their pay TV provider for years and years. Maybe they remember the digital television transition 12 years ago, but that may be about it. So it would probably be convenient if, while they were switching, they saw an ad like this.
Are you tired of paying expensive cable or satellite bills month after month? Now you see them. Now you don't. You don't need expensive cable or satellite anymore.
ClearTV is a brand name of as seen on TV antenna products. They've brought out a few models over the years in various antenna shapes. Ads for this product and products like it have been running for years. Somewhat ironically, largely on broadcast stations and other local advertising slots, where parts of the audience may not even be cable or satellite subscribers in the first place. The main arguments made are that with their antenna, you can stop paying money for your cable service and get high-definition broadcast channels over the air, which, on its face, is correct.
And is easy. Just plug it into your TV's cable input, no wires, no unsightly antennas.
But this is an antenna. The ad goes out of its way to make special mention of federal regulations that state local broadcasters must transmit in digital. But that's not new. It dates back to the 2009 digital TV transition, and it's slightly more complicated than that, as low-power stations were exempt from the transition and could continue to broadcast in analog until a later date, ultimately pushed to July 13, 2021. Their longer half-hour infomercial, and the shorter commercial, a similar competing product, also go out of their way to suggest that a broadcast signal is uncompressed, whereas the cable signal is compressed, and somehow that translates to a quality loss. This isn't really true at all. Broadcast signals are compressed too, at the broadcaster's end, especially now that most stations are multiplexed to carry multiple channels. Uncompressed digital video is massive. Uncompressed HD would require a bitrate of over a gigabit per second, and the current broadcast TV standard in use, ATSC 1.0, the 8 via speed modulation method, only transfers at a maximum of 19.39 megabits per second within the 6 MHz frequency channels carried over from analog broadcasting. For digital video of literally any kind to work at all, it has to be compressed. Thus, broadcast stations compress their output, and pay TV providers also compress broadcast station signals, either in lieu of or in addition to that. I couldn't find specific numbers or a bitrate map while researching for this video, and every station is different, but from my recollection, a 1080p signal takes up about 8 to 10 megabits per second, sometimes more, of the 19 and change they have, which realistically tends to get shaved down to 18 megabits per second in practice. This is similar to YouTube's recommended upload bitrate, not to mention that usage of variable bitrate and statistical multiplexing, where the bitrate changes according to the detail of the content being broadcast, makes it even harder to pin down an exact number. Image quality is dependent on multiple factors, chiefly resolution, bitrate, and compression technology, so for the average Joe TV viewer, determining image quality is nearly subjective, and to them likely irrelevant, so long as it looks roughly in line with what they've come to expect the general image quality of a standard or high-definition channel to look like. But that detail and compression, while wrong, is probably splitting hairs. In 2020, ClearTV launched a new product, and in their efforts to sell antennas, they stretched the marketing technicalities to the point that they told a blatant, outright lie.
Well, it's time to say goodbye to the cable guy.
because now you can watch 4K Ultra HD broadcast TV for free. Introducing ClearTV's new 4K Ultra HD design, the Premium HD.
ClearTV's Premium HD antenna claims to allow viewers to watch 4K Ultra HD content for free. This is patently wrong on so many levels that it might as well be dishonest advertising. 4K basically doesn't exist yet on broadcast television. For starters, the bandwidth for it just isn't there under the current standard. Using YouTube as an example again, YouTube's recommended bitrate for 4K content is 35 to 45 megabits a second. The current ATSC 1.0 standard, again, tops out at 19.39 megabits per second in a technical sense, and dips down to about 18 or so in practice. Even if new compression techniques got the 4K signal down to a bitrate of, say, 25 megabits a second, that still would be well in excess of the throughput of ATSC 1.0. The upcoming ATSC 3.0 standard will make 4K feasible from a bandwidth standpoint, with bitrate capacities of up to 57 megabits per second depending on how it's configured. But while some stations are beginning to broadcast in the new standard, ATSC 3.0 tuners are yet to be widely available. At the moment, there are only two models out, one at $200 and the other at $250, and new televisions with ATSC 3.0 tuners built in are still well over $1,000 at this point. Plus, the transition will be voluntary rather than mandatory like the digital transition that moved us to ATSC 1.0, so it'll likely be several years, if not longer, before the technology is widespread or affordable. And even then, it's not like 4K content will be available. 4K programming of any kind has struggled to gain viability itself, with there only being a few handfuls of 4K television channels running worldwide and limited Ultra HD offerings on video on demand and streaming platforms. Like most channels, the major broadcast television networks and programming syndicators, not to mention local stations themselves, have had little incentive to upgrade to 4K on any level, given their audiences can likely only watch the content in 1080i HD at best right now, and much of the resolution benefit would be negated through the downscaling. This has somewhat dampened the adoption of 4K TVs as well, though they are going down in price considerably and quickly compared to a few years ago, as TV manufacturers look towards supporting the even more elusive 8K for their flashy flagship models. Technically, there is nothing stopping ClearTV's antenna itself from theoretically picking up a 4K signal. It's just a few pieces of plastic and metal and circuitry grabbing a frequency wave like all antennas. However, that would require the antenna to be plugged into an ATSC 3.0 tuner, which isn't widely available, connected to or part of a 4K TV, which isn't necessarily the cheapest. And most importantly, it would require that a television station is actually broadcasting a 4K programming signal, which no one is doing right now. The current standard lacks the bandwidth, and the upcoming new standard is still nascent, and the focus there is mainly on porting over existing SD and HD services first. ClearTV's advertising for their Premium HD antenna makes none of those added details apparent. They insinuate that you can just spend $20 on their tiny little antenna and magically receive Ultra HD television programming. Never mind the fact that absolutely none of that content exists right now, and that for most viewers' current TVs, receipt of those signals is technically impossible. ClearTV makes note of that for a split second in fine print, but only in some versions of the commercial and not others. Thus, as it stands today, the Premium HD antenna is just downright deceptive advertising, and you don't even have to buy the product to find that out. When the ads for this product started running, I found it utterly irritating that they were promoting it like this, as not only does it show just how little either the makers of this product or the makers of this advertising understand about the state of broadcasting technology right now, it preys on and takes advantage of the average viewer who doesn't really know or care how these details work and just wants to make informed decisions as to what's on their screen. I doubt many people know what ATSC 3.0 even is right now, much less the changes it'll bring to broadcast television. But someone will see this commercial and its false promise of offering free 4K content and get suckered into buying a cheap antenna that doesn't deliver on what it claims or insinuates, and if the 20-mile range from the ClearTV key is any indication, may likely not even be the right antenna they need to receive their local market's channels. The advertising angle for the ClearTV Premium HD antenna is just outright lies, and I don't think that's fair or right. It's trying to sell people an appealing future that will only be realized several years and hundreds if not thousands of dollars in other TV equipment upgrades from now. I'm just as excited about the prospect of free over-the-air 4K as much as the next person, but absolutely none of the pieces are in place for it yet. So selling this product as a 4K antenna, just so you can say that it's better than your old model, is scummy and downright shameful. If you're in the market for an antenna for whatever reason, treat it like any other product and do your research. Look up signal and coverage maps for your area, then pick the antenna with the features and range that will help you receive the channels you want to watch. There's probably nothing fundamentally wrong with ClearTV's antennas. They're cheap, likely serviceable ways to get all your locals if you happen to live in a city or a suburb in a market where a 20-mile range makes sense. Though, given antennas are basically commodities at this point, you do have to try pretty hard as an advertiser to make an antenna sound interesting, and more challengingly, make it sound enticing enough to ditch a content-rich, if pricey, pay TV package for. But slapping on a hot buzzword and making it your product's main claim when other technological factors will make it literally impossible for your product to deliver on its promise is borderline fraudulence. One particularly litigious customer, or a group of customers, could blow this product and this brand out of the water, and deservedly so. Advertising like this is despicable, it's disgusting, and it's ignorant of the back-end details of broadcasting as they stand right now, which may not be of interest to most consumers, but are deeply important as to how they actually receive the content on their screen. If you want more commentaries like this, then hit subscribe to let me know I should cover stuff like this more often. Plus, you'll get more stories from the world of television every single week. I haven't talked about technical stuff too heavily on this channel, though I'd like to in future, so in the meantime you can watch this video from a while back on call signs, up here or down in the description. I'm Benzie Johnson Jr., I'm enthusiastic about television, and I'll see you next time.